Today we're going to talk about the low bar squat and how to set yourself up perfectly. Behind every big squat is a perfect setup. Now, even when it comes down to the consistency of your technique, through the volume work you're going to do in your program, to the top sets and to your max attempt on the platform, having a messy setup is going to set you up really for failure, especially when we get into those grindy reps and those grindy attempts. Any deviation away from what's ideal may result in a fail. I'm going to break down each aspect of the setup so that you're going to be able to use it and apply it into your own training and have yourself set up perfectly for your next low bar session. So number one is bar placement. Where are you placing that bar on your back? And I'm going to touch on grip width too. Number two is bracing with and without a belt. Number three is stance. And then number four is your walkout. Okay, so let's get into bar placement. So with a low bar squat compared to a high bar squat, it's in the name. You're placing the bar down a little bit lower on your back where your rear delts are. So the bar should be placed just across your rear delts. This is going to be the widest part of your back and it's going to be most likely the most comfortable. Now, when I say comfortable, I say that a little bit loosely because depending on your shoulder mobility and your wrist mobility, it can be a little bit clunky for some guys. So if you're not able to get your hands in close, which I would advise, with a full grip, you might need to look at increasing the mobility of your shoulders, doing banded dislocations to broom dislocations, even behind the neck presses, or even using some static stretching out the pecs. I have a lot of clients that are tradesmen and they spend a lot of time in awkward positions and they have to stretch out their pecs before they get into that low bar position because it can be really painful on the shoulders and the wrists if those shoulders are pretty locked up. So this is where our grip width comes in. If you are a little bit stiff in your shoulders, you're probably going to have to go with a bit of a wider grip, and then as you warm up, try and bring those hands in a little bit closer. I personally have to take a couple of warm-up sets before I'm able to get my hands really close, but when I can get my hands closer, it just creates more stability for that bar across our back. But some people go with a false grip where they wrap their thumb over the bar, which is completely fine. And as I said, if you are a little bit stiff in your shoulders, it's going to suit you a little bit better. When I was bigger, I was able to get away with a wider grip because I had more mass across my back. Now that I'm a little bit smaller, I'm around 85 kilos. And when I had a wider grip, it was around 100 kilos. So now that I'm a bit more narrow, I'm able to bring my arms in that little bit closer. So it really depends on how mobile your shoulders are. And as I said, doing some mobility drills will help with that. So making sure to try and get the arms as close as you can with that bar resting across our rear delts. Okay, so next up, bracing. So I'm going to presume that you're using a belt, but if you're not, I'm going to explain how I would brace irrespective of even having a belt or not. So now that we have the bar placed in the right position on our back, this is where we're going to pop out of the rack. But before this, we need to make sure that we have a solid brace made. The whole point of the brace really is to create as much transverse abdominal pressure. So what that means is creating a ton of pressure within our abdominal region. So what I like to do is I firstly take a big breath underneath that barbell, hold that breath, and then take my 2 steps back to get out of the rack, and a 3rd step to readjust my foot to get that good stance. From here, I'm exhaling. So most people will just think hold the breath, which is completely fine, but I like to exhale because that's going to force you to contract your abdominal muscles. And you're going to be able to get into that more solid brace where your ribs are over your hips, and it just creates a stronger brace. As you exhale, you should feel your obliques and your abdominal muscles tighten. From this point, you're taking a bigger breath while holding that tension within your abdominal muscles. If you can successfully exhale while creating that tension through your abdominals, which is going to deflate your lungs and push your diaphragm down, and your ab muscles are going to contract nice and tight. From here then, we take a massive big breath again and we fill that belt up, and then we brace good and hard by pulling that bar down into our rear delts even more. And this is where we execute the lift. Now, just a caveat of this, if you don't have a belt, you can use the very same bracing technique. It's going to feel a little bit tougher, obviously, because you're not going to have that extra layer around your core. You're going to have to just take a bigger breath and brace into your abdominal a little bit more and then execute from there. If you have a belt, it's very important that you don't have the belt too tight, because the key to using the belt properly is not actually having it really tight so that it's cramming everything together. It's so that you have enough space in the belt so you can actually take that deep breath and fill the belt. And I think a lot of guys make this mistake where they will just clamp that belt onto them really tight without actually giving themselves enough space within the belt to actually brace correctly into the belt. So make sure to have a little bit of space in that belt before you set yourself up. A good rule of thumb is if you can stick your finger in,
Yeah, boy.
take a big breath and then push your finger against the belt, you probably have enough space in there. If you can't fit your finger in at all, you're not going to have enough space. So just be careful with that. So we already touched on the walkout. So we're taking 3 steps back to get our foot position. So with low bar, we want a good foot position so that it allows our torso to sit back into our hips. Now this is very much based off your anatomy. So for me, I can sit back into my hips quite easily. I'm short and body, so I can keep my torso pretty vertical and allow my knees to travel forward more. The main thing is that you pick a stance that's going to be best suited for you. And that's going to be based on your anatomy. And it is a thing that you're going to have to try and figure out on your own. But the main thing is that you're able to maintain your brace while getting into that bottom position, and you're able to break parallel. And that you're not feeling any excessive lumbar pain, or the lift is just feeling really unstable at the bottom position. So making sure that you take a good stance that's hip width apart, and it allows you to push your knees out and sit your torso into your hips as you come down. Because with the low bar position, the way the bar is placed, the bar is going to be loading more of your hips. So you're going to naturally want to bring your butt backwards. And that's just down to the mechanics of the exercise and where the bar is placed on our back. So that once you have a stance, whether that's narrow or wide, and that allows you to get into that bottom position quite comfortably while maintaining your brace, is going to be the best stance for you. A good rule of thumb, as I said, is taking a hip width stance, but if your anatomy allows a more narrow stance or a wider stance, then go for it. Generally, I find with clients that have longer femurs, a wider stance tends to suit them a little bit better, just because it creates a little bit more space for their femur to come back into their hip and allows their torso to sink in between their hips. So it will look a lot different between my stance and say my client's stance, where they will be making more of that hinge back into their hips, where I can just squat down pretty vertical and power back up. So lastly, I just want to touch on this. Connecting all of these things together is going to create a ton of stability. And the more stability you have when you're attempting max loads with a low bar squat, the better the outcome. When we connect bar position with grip width and making sure that the bar is on a good sturdy shelf across our rear delts, having a good solid brace and a solid foot position, and that the bar is going to be over our midfoot and we're able to maintain that over our midfoot while executing the lift, is going to result in a better squat. So that's how I set myself up for low bar squat and help all my clients set up. If it's helped, make sure to like it, save it, and subscribe to my channel.